And welcome in, ladies, gentlemen, and everything in between to another episode of the High Low Sports Podcast. We appreciate y'all for joining us here on this Wednesday evening, or if it just happens to be at a later time that you're checking us out in audio or video form on one of your favorite platforms. It is DJ joined as always by my co-host Kelcey as we have just wrapped up Mother's Day weekend. A lot going on in the world of sports. Happy Mother's Day belated to all the mothers out there as well. We got ourselves a very, very busy time in the sports world. We got a lot of fun things going on, a lot of excitement, and well, you know what? We're going to touch on a little bit of everything today when it comes to sports. We're going to dabble across multiple leagues, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's that weird part of the year, right? That playoffs are here, but then there's everything else happening. I mean, there is so much happening across the world. Rookie mini training camp or rookie mini camp. I don't even know what to call it anymore. All the rookies in the NFL are actually practicing in helmets if they've signed their deal. And if they haven't,
Then they're
we'll
on the
see.
Bengals.
Yeah, then they're on the Bengals. This is twice now. Twice in 10 years that the Bengals have done this. What are we doing anymore, Bengals? Maybe I need to take down this Joe Burrow jersey over my
Well, let's
shoulders.
not get hasty. Let's not get hasty. Let's not get out of control now.
But yeah, no, there's a lot of fun stuff happening. A lot of stuff we need to talk about. A lot of things that have changed the landscape of what we thought was going to happen in the NBA playoffs. So
Absolutely. We're going to talk about that, but we're going to talk about, speaking of changing the landscape, that's a good way to lead us into our first segment known as the tip off. The tip off brought to our good friends over at SeatGeek. Use code BellyUp Sports for $20 off your first purchase. Tickets for concerts, sporting events, comedy shows, anything you could think of with tickets. Use code BellyUp Sports to get $20 off your first purchase. And speaking of changing the landscape, the landscape is changing a little bit in the world of baseball and not in the traditional ways we've seen in recent years where you see the pitch clock and designated hitters and everything like that. No, we're going off the field for on the field, if that makes sense. Pete Rose, among the Shoeless Joe Jackson, two of the sport's most famous players who were kicked out of baseball for gambling related to the game. Well, they have been removed from the league's permanently banned and eligible list. So now they are eligible to join the Professional Baseball Hall of Fame, made by Commissioner Rob Manfred. More or less in the statement, he said that once an individual passes away, they have more or less served purpose of Rule 21, no longer can represent a threat to the integrity of the game, putting in quotes there. And moreover, it is hard to conceive a penalty that is more deterrent effect than one that lasts a lifetime. So basically, from what this tells us, long story short and very, very well worded response is Pete Rose could be in the Hall of Fame very, very quickly. He could be enshrined in Cooperstown. So, Kelsey, what are you feeling about this? We've touched on Pete Rose a couple of times over the years on the podcast, but it's actually kind of real life now. I didn't honestly think this would be the day, at least anytime soon, but here we are. We can see a Pete Rose bust in Cooperstown.
yeah, well deserved. Look, the guy, he didn't bet on himself. He didn't bet on his own team to lose or anything like that. It's not like Shoeless Joe. It's not like the Black Sox, the old White Sox team that bet against themselves, and then threw a World Series.
Yeah, that one's still surprising.
Yeah, honestly, it with Pete Rose. It's like sports gambling is legal now. We see it all the time. Athletes are currently able to bet, not on their own sport, not on their own games, but they're able to bet because it's legal today. It was only a matter of time before we finally saw it. I'm glad. And now I'll say this: this is the best thing Rob Manfred has ever done as commissioner of the MLB, and will probably be the best thing that this man has ever done. And it covers up a lot of his shortcomings as an MLB commissioner. But you know what? I'll take it. If I get to see old Pete Hustle himself, Johnny Hustle, make it to the Hall in my lifetime, I'm shocked. I'll be honest. I will be shocked, but I think he deserves it. I think he has deserved it for a long time. Best MLB player not from the steroid era to be out of the Hall of Fame. Hands down. No question in my mind that this man deserved to be in the Hall of Fame decades ago. But here he is, finally getting removed from the ban list. I'm okay with this. I love this. A lot of people might have a little bit of like something to say about this. I don't care. The guy bet on baseball, but not on his own teams or his own play. To me, whatever. Maybe it's because we grew up in an era where betting is legal. I don't know,
Encouraged
but yeah, encouraged in a lot of ways. I mean,
by
heck, they have.
the leagues themselves.
Yeah, I was gonna say they have deals with DraftKings and FanDuel and Bet365 and all these other groups.
Charles
It's like,
Barkley has cost a lot of people money these playoffs. I can tell you that for sure.
yeah, it's just one of those things. Like, man, I've not been happier to see something happen in baseball recently because this is one, and you just like it kind of makes you relieve that one of the guys that did it the right way on the field is finally going to have a chance to be rewarded. Unfortunately, he was not alive to see it. And that is the sad thing at the end of the day. Is like he won't be alive to see it, but his family, who some of them only saw highlights of him play, will get to see potentially him being enshrined in the Hall of Fame. And that's pretty big.
We say potentially, but I feel like if we're objective about this, even if they don't give it to next year, we should see it relatively soon. Just
Yeah.
for to list a couple of the accolades. I mean, the still current MLB record for number of games played with over 3,500 and hits with almost 4,300, among many other things, plus a career as a manager too. Like we won't say it's a sure thing because we've seen some wacky stuff with players not getting in the Hall of Fame, they take the sweet time getting them in, et cetera, et cetera. But by all intents and purposes, it's good to see that he at least not only has a chance, but the odds should ever be in his favor. Like the odds should definitely lean significantly towards him. Unlike what we saw in the NBA draft lottery, where just because the odds are in your favor, we don't get to see absolutely any of that play out the way as it wants. As we're now going to switch over to the association, is that there might be a flag planting in Dallas coming up. As Dallas manages to secure the first overall pick in the draft with a whopping 1.8, yeah, not 2%, 1.8% chance to get the number one overall pick. And you know, there's more than that too. So you know, we're gonna take a look at a few things really quick. All right. So bear with me, everybody, on this one. We're gonna talk a little bit about we're gonna just look a little bit into this. So one thing that when you look at it, the Wizards were in the top, the the Wizards, the Jazz, and and the Hornets were the top three teams at 14%, as we can see right here. The Pelicans at 12.5%, the Sixers at 11%. If you look at the three best odds, the Jazz, the Wizards, and the Hornets, they had a 52% chance of landing a top four pick. None of them got a top four pick. Or sorry, the Hornets got the fourth pick, so they didn't get a top three pick out of that. You look at the teams that did get up there, the Mavericks at 1.8%, the Spurs at 6%, the 76ers at 10.5%. Okay, I get they earned it through no fault of their own. They earned that spot all on their own, but I'm not gonna say it's rigged, but awfully smelly now how this manages to pull off for the Mavericks right after Luka Doncic goes to the the NBA's favorite team in the Lakers for what we all criticize as the worst trade ever, arguably. And then suddenly they're rewarded with Cooper Flagg. I'm not just saying, I'm just saying. Obviously, not saying they tanked on purpose because they nearly made the playoffs and missed this. However, very, very interesting how it kind of plays out. Like Cleveland getting the number one overall pick after LeBron leaves, and when he comes back, and then the Pelicans getting it after Anthony Davis leaves. I'm not saying, I'm just saying.
Yeah, not saying, but just saying is a lot of saying, if you will. This list kills me because if you look at the bottom of it, obviously as a Kings fan, I hate being on this list. But worse than that is the second half of what the Kings pick says. Pick may be conveyed to Atlanta if it's not in the top 12. Well, guess what? They got the 13th overall pick, and guess where it's sitting at now? Atlanta. So good job, Kings. Way to screw that one up again. Anyways, back to the point of this whole thing. Um, we see this time and time again. Okay, we can go back further before the draft lotto being a thing was a thing. How in the world do Larry Bird and Magic Johnson end up on the two biggest franchises in the NBA? How does Michael Jordan end up in Chicago at the time? Not that Chicago was a huge powerhouse, but let's not kid ourselves. Chicago's a notable franchise historically.
I blame that one on the Trailblazers. Just let him slip right there to number three. It's like, no, we don't want him.
We have never seen one of these surefire number one picks end up in Sacramento, end up in Portland. Well, there was Len Bias, but RIP
Ever
Len
since
Bias.
then, I guess that was the bad
Yeah.
omen. They haven't let it happen since.
You know, we don't see it often in Toronto. We see them get a good pick in like the 6, 7, 8 range. Vince Carter. You know, you don't see it in a lot of these cities like that are just considered lower tier. You haven't seen it in Milwaukee since Lou Alcindor. Yeah, I used his government name because at the time that was what he went by. And you know, it's kind of appalling if the NBA is being honest that this continues to happen. If you want to call it a lotto, call it a lotto. Just throw the balls in there, one ball for every team, and just call it swell. When you're doing all of this, You're providing opportunities to have some sort of questions thrown on everything. And whether Adam Silver and the rest of the previous commissioners all are bought into this idea that the big franchises need to continue being big or not, it looks like they believe that the big franchises need to continue being big. There's not going to be a number one pick to the Utah Jazz anytime soon. The Washington Wizards are not going to get a number one pick anytime soon. The Charlotte Hornets had their chance at a top 3 pick, and they're not getting another number one pick anymore. After Bismack Biyombo, they're not getting anything.
Well, they got Brandon Miller, despite all things that come along with that.
But he was like, what, 6, 7?
He was 3.
Was he 3? Okay, fair enough.
But,
Hey,
when
you
you
get
did have a
one.
top 3 pick, that's yeah.
You got LaMelo, you got him. Like, those are your 2 options. Congratulations. You're not getting anything else. New Orleans will never see anything after, by the way. Add one more to the list of guys that get traded, and then the team gets the number 1 pick. Looking at you, New Orleans. Trade Anthony Davis, get Zion. You're not going to get another one for a while.
It's going to happen again.
Yeah. And then the fact that there are actual rumors from somewhat credible accounts that are saying that this has been a behind-the-scenes thing with the NBA. Before at the Christmas break, where they saw Luka was frustrated, didn't want to come back from this injury to that Dallas squad. Dallas was treating him like kind of garbage, and so they slowly, quote unquote, encouraged him. They encouraged Nico to make the deal happen behind the scenes. Whether that's legit or not, it's good enough to throw question marks on this. So, yeah, this NBA thing, man, it's. The idea that sports are scripted continues to get more and more professional sports are scripted continues to get more and more likely in a lot of ways because there's too much money to potentially mistaken. I'm not saying there is. I'm not saying it is actually rigged, but if there was a logic behind it, there's a lot of money behind the NBA getting big names in big places, and messing that up messes up a lot of the cash flow. So just keep that in mind as everybody looks at this. That's all I'm saying.
What I will say about this is if they do have number 1 and Nico doesn't go, full Nico, it looks like Cooper Flagg will be heading to Dallas in the upcoming draft. And that is kind of fitting when you look at it from Dirk Nowitzki to Luka Doncic to now Cooper Flagg. Dallas has a knack for drafting generational whites. It's just kind of in their DNA at this point. And because of tariffs, they had to keep it a little bit. They had to keep it in state this time. They couldn't go overseas again. But they have a knack for it. We should have seen this coming as soon as Cooper Flagg was the consensus pick. But he fits everything you need. A two-way player, very versatile, probably 3/4, maybe even 2. Can play a little bit of versatility. So in theory, it's a good pick for Dallas to pair with Anthony Davis. And this, we want to win a championship quickly thing that they pulled off last year. And defense wins championships. So you got your generational white that can move his feet and stay in front of people. Or there's the other option. They could possibly trade that pick. And there happens to be a certain somebody from overseas who is now in the United States. So no tariff applies. As far as trading for Giannis Antetokounmpo, who is exploring his options to go abroad to a different team. Will he stay in Milwaukee? I don't know, but there's some opportunities like now Dallas is an option when you have the number 1 overall pick like that. You have a lot of sway. Him, Anthony Davis, good luck scoring on that front line. My goodness. There's other teams like the Spurs, copy and paste what I just said, but factor in Wemby, good luck scoring on that front line. Who have a ton of picks and young players. There's the Rockets that have a plethora of picks. My goodness. Then there's also teams that, weirdly enough, he's interested in and that no one has on their radar. The Raptors and the Nets, for some reason, he showed interest in, which makes no sense to me. But
I actually get Toronto. Okay, stop there for a second. Let's talk about Toronto for a second.
Toronto more than the Nets is what I'm saying. Yeah. More than the Nets.
Well, I get both of them actually. Both cities, by nature. Well, first of all, let's start with Brooklyn. We'll start there. Brooklyn has a very large Greek population.
Okay, I'm talking about basketball standpoint as far as like championship
win. But I think those 2 cities as a whole, when you talk about the franchises, like, yes, the franchises maybe not the greatest for player personnel right now. But the cities are exactly what most international players want. Toronto's the most international city in the NBA, and it has constantly been talked about as a favorite home for all the international players, whether they play there or they visit. Brooklyn is a second behind that. And again, that Greek population in Brooklyn is a big reason why Giannis loves that place. So, sorry, I had to stop there because, like, I always hate the blasphemy on Toronto for international players, and especially Brooklyn too, for the Greek styles, Greek players, because there's a big reason there.
No hating on that. I'm hating on. Well, let's see. You want to leave Milwaukee to win a championship. You're going from a team with not a whole lot of assets and aging assets to a team without a lot of assets, and then Toronto that has Scotty Barnes. So I mean, like, there's okay, it's a little bit there, but like you're reaching some. So.
Yeah.
I'm good. So what I'm gonna kinda pass off to you on that one as to what are some of the places you wanna see Giannis go that can actually make the deal for him? We can't just say,
Now,
let's throw him on the Kings," because I guess they could try and make it work, but they would be left with the Milwaukee Bucks, basically.
I the Spurs option seemed very likely until Pop had to step down. I shouldn't say chose, had to step down. Um,
LAFA.
yeah, hope he's okay. But I I like their trade pieces and pairing him with a Wemby De'Aaron Fox mix was a very interesting aspect. And you add in Sochan, Sochan. I think they call it. I think that's pronounced his last name as a extra piece in that Spurs mix. I think those three or those four would be a great starting four, and then you just throw a fifth in there, and you got a pretty good team.
Just need human
Um,
body.
yeah, I mean, you're just gonna be long and strong as that that team. But the Spurs were a favorite for me. I think after the Spurs, though, it honestly the idea of Toronto isn't that crazy to me. I know, I just pause it. I just there's not a lot there, but there is enough, and especially trade bait wise, there's enough to trade a lot, and you still keep Scotty, and then you get Giannis. Scotty and Giannis seems like a very interesting duo. I also wonder if he ends up somewhere as a package deal with another player that's just happens to still be on the Bucks team, by the name of Dame Lillard. And if Dame goes in package with him, that Toronto team looks a lot different.
In 2 years, once
Yeah,
Dame comes back.
well, exactly. But it's one of those things that you just question, like, how much do the Bucks really want to keep Dame on the roster as well? That's always a question. But yeah, I love the Spurs for a long time. I just don't know if the Spurs has as much enticement in it now as it did 3 weeks ago. Because 3 weeks ago, I think he goes there without a doubt. I'm expecting to see him in silver and black. Now I've questioned that a lot. But yeah, so I'm gonna say, like, I still think the Spurs are a favorite. I can't give them 100%. So I'm gonna say the Raptors is my favorite landing destination for him.
Looks like you 2 are on the same page, so he'll enjoy that one for sure, and it fits going abroad, so the graphic actually fits in, but for me, on paper, it feels like the Rockets makes the most sense because you have a ton of Phoenix picks, you have a ton of your own picks, you have so many picks to work with. Ime Udoka is a demon, and they were just the number 2 seed with a bunch of young kids, and you could throw in someone like Şengün as part of that trade with those picks, so you get a young, really good player back in return. Only reason I say you
I
throw in
mean,
Şengün
they
is
they
because
have
him and
so many they have so many young, really good players
exactly.
to
I'm just
send
saying
from
him and
the
Şengün
Bucks.
kinda do similar things as far as on the front court,
Yeah,
it might be hard with them, so you put that as part of the deal, maybe they keep some of those picks. Then we know how much Ime Udoka loves defense and how good they are defensively as is now, and what kind of defense he coaches. You throw in a former defensive player of the year in Giannis, good luck, everybody. Like, "Oh, and wow, you got by Dylan Brooks. Oh, wait, there's a freak in the way." So I think that would be it makes a ton of sense there, and it gives the Rockets that little bit of something they need where, like we saw it against Golden State, they went on, like, 7-minute scoring droughts. Giannis is not gonna have that because eventually he will make a free throw during that point, if not a bucket. It'll be hard to make those free throws. It'll be easier, but
it,
eventually, in theory,
you'd
one
be
of those 6 is gonna go in.
they might
So
take a long time to be shot, but at least one of them's going in.
it'll just be 3.5-minute droughts with 6 free throws as opposed to 7-minute droughts and no field goals. So I think on paper, the Rockets make a lot of sense. There's always every time a potential star is available, Miami comes to mind, but I don't think they have anywhere near the assets. I mean, by the time you get done with that, it's gonna be the Greek and Tyler Hero with
Yeah.
no other pieces at that point. So the Pacers would make sense, except Tyrese Halliburton's dad kind of ruined that one. So we're gonna cross that one off a little bit. And not that they really need any upgrades at this point. They're looking pretty good, but it's interesting because there were rumors he wanted to stay in the East, which when I look at the East, it's like
Where?
maybe, just
Where?
maybe Cleveland, I guess, because they have assets. Like the question, like if you could keep Donovan and Evan Mobley, everybody else is available. Maybe throw in Garland and Jared Allen and some picks, something like that. Like just because you have to make the salaries work too. Maybe Ty Jerome. There's not a lot of East options that really stand out. Maybe the Knicks, if they flame out badly in the Eastern Conference Finals, they decide to shake up the roster again. But there's just not a lot of places in the East that make sense when I look at it. And there's always the Thunder. If they flame out too, they could be like, "We're sick of this. We have a ton of picks and we have a ton of young players. Milwaukee, name your price outside of SGA." So I think if he does
And
decide to go up,
I don't think Chet goes anywhere either. I don't think Jalen goes anywhere either.
For Giannis, I think they'd be willing to part with one of them. If let's say they just flame out badly these next couple of games against the Nuggets, or they just get smoked at like in 4 games against where it looks like they've almost hit a plateau and they need that extra boost. Maybe
Would you
one
take
of those guys.
Chet for Giannis? I think is a easy good enough.
I think the Thunder would definitely take that. I think
Yeah,
they'd definitely be okay with that. And I think Milwaukee would take it too because you get a young number 2 overall pick in the draft who's 22 years old. Like he's younger than Auburn's starting player was last year. I think you'll
to that
gladly take
room.
that.
Yeah,
Then you'll take a 7-footer and the amount of picks they have. So it's just tough because when you look at it on paper, all the trades that make sense are in the West. So it's hard to keep them in the East outside of really Cleveland, maybe, but that's just because they have some good assets. I don't even know if they'd want to do that because how does Giannis and Mobley could be dope, actually. That good luck scoring on that front line with Donovan Mitchell. There's options out there. I'm really curious. So maybe there's something we haven't thought about. Everyone be sure to let us know in the comments where you think
dude.
should be looking for Giannis and Kelcey. You got one more off the top of your head?
I was to say, well, I want to go back to your Houston comment for a second. I've been looking at the roster for the last couple seconds, and
Hmm.
I'm just imagining if okay, let's say they send Sengun and some picks for Giannis, a starting five of Jalen Green, Amin Thompson, Giannis, Jabari Smith, and maybe Steven Adams, or you go small and you put Van Fleet in there. That's a very interesting lineup, and it's young and talented. And look, Giannis is no old man by any means. He's still a young kid. And by the way, they could throw Reed Shepard in there, who was a top first round pick as well. And they don't even have to maybe send Sengun. Maybe they send Reed Shepard and a bunch of picks, and that solves the issue.
Maybe
And
Jabari
then you're
Smith
talking
too.
about a Sengun Giannis front line with a Jalen Green, Amin Thompson, and probably Van Fleet as the three in the backcourt. Like, good luck, West Coast. There might not be a Lake Show as the top team or an SGA as the top player in the West. It might be a Houston Rockets comeback. Like, I don't know, man. That'd be wild.
One thing is for certain though, with how all that plays out, if it went that way, Amon Thompson, you gotta sharpen up that 3 box. You're gonna be sitting on the outside a lot. We can't have you running, can't have you crashing the paint with all of those bodies in the paint. You gotta
Maybe it's Thompson that gets traded. At that point in time, Giannis for Thompson, I'm taking it.
it's I think the Rockets would too. So you know what? I'm really curious, people. Go ahead and drop in the comment section. What are some of the places you think Giannis could go? Places you would like him to see, and ones that make sense too. Don't just pull like don't throw the Wizard, not the don't throw the Warriors at us. Don't throw the Lakers at us. I'm curious what other options. There's one more I thought of before we get out of here too. There's two more actually. The Magic, if they can make it work. I don't know if they have the
Mhm.
salaries to make it work without having to completely gut themselves, but him and Paulo Banchero, and if you could somehow keep Wagner too, although I think he'd have to be part of the trade. But and then
You'd
there's
probably be able to keep Cole Anthony though.
probably, yeah, I think you'd be able to pull that one off. And then the other one, I don't know if they can make the salaries work. I really don't, but I just like the idea of it. Him going to Detroit to play with Cade Cunningham. Like that's what I would like to see because it gives you a inside out option and it gives you a complimentary star. I just don't think they can make the salaries work though.
I don't think they'd be very complimentary to each other. I think that's the one thing. I think Cade is too much of a slasher first.
Yeah, he gets in the paint, he could just throw the ball to the sky, and out of nowhere comes a Greek freak flying with his long arms to dunk the ball. Yeah, as soon as they collapse on him,
Help.
it could be like Jokic throwing alley-oops to Aaron Gordon.
Yeah, I don't know. It's that's a weird one for sure. Uh, maybe not my favorite. Also, I
Is
wonder about Atlanta as a potential landing spot. That's always a possibility out there. Him and Trey, maybe. I don't know. Just something to think about.
one thing's for sure is there are 29 other teams that will gladly take his services. I'm just curious, like, who can actually make it happen, that's for sure. Let us know in the comments below where you all think he's gonna go, who you think should trade for him. But it's gonna take us now from the Greek freak, we're gonna now talk about an Australian who made his dreams come to life in Aussie for the Aussies in Canada. UFC 315, Jack Delamet Maddalena conquers Bilal Muhammad to win the welterweight championship, and he will be taking on Islam Makhachev, the lightweight champion, vacating his belt to move up to welterweight to challenge him later on this year in a bit of a champion versus champion fight, even though it's not both belts aren't on the line as Islam vacated. Won't go too deep into it because I did put a video on our YouTube channel earlier today breaking down the summer schedule for the UFC that they just dropped, which includes Islam's old belts now up for grabs, as well as some of the other fights they have scheduled. But on this one, a couple things I'll quickly say is, hey, if you watched our preview video last week, you went 4 out of 5 on your pay-per-view bet. So our strong streak on the year continues. The only thing that killed us was Jose Aldo running out of gas. And everything we kind of talked about that Jack Della Maddalena against Bilal Muhammad, everything came to fruition. The ability to use the hands in close, control the distance, basically dictated the fight. him and Islam Makhachev. I can't wait till that fight's scheduled because I wanna see the betting odds on that one. After what he did against Bilal, who has a similar yet very much less dangerous style than Islam, he ran through it. Islam's usually like a -400 favorite, it feels like. I'm curious how it's gonna be with a change of weight classes, so, once again, definitely be sure to check out our video on our YouTube page where I go into a little bit more of the UFC's upcoming schedule and some of the fallouts that come for this, but I look forward to seeing this fight scheduled, and we finally have a young violence is king in the UFC welterweight division again. The last handful of champions, it has been it has been winning. Now violence is in charge again. I'm excited for it. Excellent fight. Fight of the night. He put Bilal Muhammad in a fight of the night style scrap, which is nearly impossible. So that absolutely incredible. And that's awesome. I just love it. And once again, we talked about it on the last week's show. His skill set matches up very well with the type of style that Bilal has, and I think it's gonna put a lot of problems for Islam as well. I'm really looking forward to this one. I hope it gets. I know it's been less than 100 hours since Jack got the belt, but damn it, I want that. I want that next one on the schedule. I'm excited for this one.
No, it'll be fun, right? Like it's look at the end of the day, all these fights, man. Even though I am not the guy that follows the UFC like everybody else, but I am the guy that loves me a good fisticuffs fight. What JDM and Bilal did was one of the more entertaining fights I've seen recently, especially for a title belt. It felt like for a title belt, this was one of the more entertaining ones I've seen recently. Um, and look, I'm always down for a good guy that likes to scrap as a belt holder because it means the next couple fights when he's trying to defend his belt are gonna be pretty good. You're not gonna be wasting your time watching another Floyd Mayweather point you up type of fight like you always saw with his back into the run. I'm not that guy. Give me some entertainment. Give me some teeth getting knocked out. Give me some trash talk. That's the only thing I think is missing right now. I need more trash talk from JDM.
Yeah, some trash talk. It's subtle zingers, and unfortunately, it wasn't really against Bilal. It was against other people. But you know what? I'm curious. This is gonna be fun. He's got a little Aussie to him, but that's exciting. But
Well, he he,
be
he
sure
took a shoey. That's the important part.
that is one thing Australians are known for. I mean, talk about Tui definitely made that one famous. That's for sure. With the amount he
Yeah.
does it every time he's on camera at those events. There's a reason he's a heavyweight. I don't think he was always a heavyweight, but those shoeys add up after
That
30 years.
Foster's eventually catches you.
They always catch up for sure. But be sure to check out a video on our YouTube page going over the UFC summer schedule and some of the fights to come out of that. But that's now going to switch gears into the main event. And for the main event today, we're going back to the NBA. We're going to start with the somber side of things. Unfortunately, Jayson Tatum's season has come to an end, as his most likely his next season. In that loss to the Knicks, arguably the best playoff game of his career, nonetheless, he was in the midst of. He goes down with an Achilles tear, following in Kobe Bryant's footsteps right down to the T. He's just about a decade too early for it, unfortunately. This is heartbreaking, not just for the Celtics, but for him too. I mentioned, arguably the best playoff game of his career. He'd finally kind of put, at least for this game, he put to bed the whole he's not a playoff performer, he stinks, terrible efficiency, blah 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 blah. And then have this happen in the tight game too. They were probably
Mhm.
still losing. They were down by I think 9 with 3 minutes
Yeah,
left.
9 points with three.
We've seen crazier stuff happen, especially when you shoot threes at a ridiculous clip like the Celtics does, which is costing them the series, is the fact that they don't have a plan B. But I digress on that problem, Joe Mazzulla. The 2-point shot's still acceptable. Mid ranges were fine, and Tatum used to be elite at them until you forced him to shoot so many threes. But I digress.
Jason
I pref-
Tatum's Jalen Brown's pretty good at him too.
Used to be, not as much anymore. Not
Yeah.
now when they shoot them, it's like, well, there we go. Well, what I want to say with this one is feel for Tatum. I hope he's able to bounce back healthily. But for the Celtics, I feel like they're obviously cooked this series at this point. I think next season's not, I'm gonna say cooked, but I don't know what they're gonna do. 'Cause, like, Kristaps has a year left. Drew Holiday's running out of time. Like, there's already talk of them shaking up the roster regardless. But now, next year's gonna look very interesting in Celtic land. I think it means Jalen Brown's safe though. I know he's a trade rumor every single damn year. I think
Yeah.
this offseason he's finally safe, at least for one more offseason.
Yeah, they're playing game 5 right now as we're recording this. So Celtics are up by 2 at the time we're talking about this. Maybe Jalen Brown can come off, but Jalen Brown and Derek White are the reason why they're sticking in this one. Um, and some pretty good defense. Like that's one thing with this Celtics team is even without Tatum, they're still a really good defensive team. The difference with Tatum is that defense that he plays is so good that his offense seems even better. Especially you talk about this last game, 42 points when he goes down, looked fantastic all game. And it's a tough thing where you're down by 9, you're probably out of it with 3 minutes to go just based on the flow of that game. The way it was going, it felt like it was starting to go the other way again. It was starting to go back to the Knicks. So it's like a tough thing to see where even it's a non-contact thing too. These Achilles, man, every time you see one, it's so obvious in a lot of ways. I'm concerned. We'll talk about it in a second, but I was concerned that this is what happened with Donovan Mitchell in the second to last game when he didn't come back after halftime because it was like he took the same kind of step and couldn't put weight on it. The difference was he didn't collapse, and I was like, you could tell. Okay, well, it's not an Achilles, but maybe it's a slight stress of it. I don't know. But Tatum's, man, when he went down, it's so sad to see every time. But the Celtics from the rest of this series, it's kind of up to Joe Mazzulla to figure out what he wants to do. I don't know if they're cooked yet, but man, 3-1 is not an easy thing to come back from, especially not without Jayson Tatum, who is a top 10 player in the league today. I mean, prior to this injury, and he's not number 10, 9, or 8 probably not
Right.
even number 6 or 5.
I say you make a strong case for top 5 for sure. I
Yeah,
would say I would probably have more confidence in him if they hadn't already choked 3 20-point leads this series already with
yeah.
Jason Tatum. So now it's like, and with how Jalen Brunson has been playing, he's having an off night at the time of the recording, but like we saw, he can give you 30 in the fourth quarter in the blink of an eye. But either way, I'm really curious. We know he's out for next season. I'm curious how they attack this offseason. If like, all right, we'll rally and try and get one back. Maybe somehow he has one of those Adrian Peterson like recoveries where maybe we can get him in for the playoff run next year. I don't know. Teams always, if they think that way, if they think continue the build, I'm just curious what they're going to do this offseason because
Yeah.
there's
I
already
mean,
talk about shaking up the team. Now I'm curious if it alters the timeline just a little bit.
look, looking at the last 5, like their 5 players, starting 5 right now, Kristaps is probably the worst player on the starting 5 today. Jaylen Brown, Derek White, Al Horford, Drew Holiday,
Al's
Kristaps.
probably gone with retirement, honestly, at this
Yeah,
point. He's at
he's probably gone. Kristaps, you got to figure out if he's going to stick around or not. Okay, if he
right.
doesn't, what are you going to do to replace him? You have Tillman Sr. sitting on the bench. Yeah, is he the guy? Probably not. Beyond him, don't really have any bigs down there. You have Luke Cornett. I don't think he's the guy either. Maybe you go out and get somebody. The draft is here. Maybe you end up with a Janai Broom who seems to fit that Al Horford role, like almost identical to Al Horford in a lot of ways.
Right down to the vertical. The only
Yeah,
difference is 20 years of age, unfortunately.
yeah, an inch in 20 years. Look, Al Horford didn't jump over phone books in college either. But you have Peyton Pritchard there that can fill a gap at and so I think with that you have Drew to the 2, Jalen at the 3, Derek White at the 3, whatever 3 combo guys, and then you figure out your center role. I just
They'll be good next year regardless.
Yeah, it's just I
Yeah.
don't think they're done, but yeah, the writing's on the wall here, like it has been. It feels like for the last 3 years that everybody talks about that somebody's going somewhere in return for some players. Like I don't know if it's Jalen, I don't know if it's Derek White, but somebody's going somewhere for some players in return at this point in time. There's no way around it.
Maybe they go complete balls to the wall and they trade a whole bunch of everything minus basically Derek White and Jason Tatum. They go after Giannis and there's like, you know what? Once everyone's healthy, good luck everybody else. Because Derek White and Giannis alone will get you a top 4
Well,
seed next year.
Giannis and Drew Holiday have a pretty successful run together. So if you can keep Drew along with bringing in Giannis and Derek White, that's a pretty good trio. That when Tatum comes back, I'm not against that idea.
And we know that Derek White and Drew Holiday are basically what I like to call championship winning players. They're never going to be the best players on a team, but they're players you need to win a title, and the Celtics happen to have 2 of the best ones in the league at
They'll
it.
give you 24 in a survival game like Derek White's giving you right now and is the leading scorer for the
And
Celtics.
they can also give you like 8 points, but still be a difference maker
Yeah.
defensively, ball handling, shooting, everything. They're just winning basketball players regardless. And the Celtics have been so good because they have those 2 along with 2 all-star and just in a superstar. So maybe, we'll see how things shake out. I'm curious to see. We'll see how this series finishes too, for sure. It's definitely not over yet, but putting my money on the Knicks now, but it's definitely not over. Not today. The Knicks, this would be very Knicks fashion to lose today. But for the series. But that's what one number 1 seed that is a number 2 seed, a 60-win team that is in danger in the East. There is a 64-win team that is already home. I can't believe what happened in Cleveland. The land, it is the mistake by the lake. It came to fruition. Obviously, injuries played a part in it. But to lose in 5 to Indiana, a team that you should have beat in at least 2 of those games that you lost, one of them especially where you were up till the blink of an eye, basically. Do we blame this one on the injuries? Do we blame it on the players? Do we blame it on everything? That this felt even worse than they lost the Knicks 2 years ago, where that meme of, "Oh, the lights were just too bright for us," came from. This feels a little bit worse than that considering, A, the expectations you came in with, and B, the way some of those games were lost. Game 2 with 60% of your starting 5 out, Donovan Mitchell gives you a Herculean effort, and you lose on the last second, basically, because you just run out of gas and people don't contribute. And Ty Jerome going 1 of 14 as a starter was not a good look. And then game 4, where you're down 37-2 within a blink of an eye, and you basically at halftime, like you mentioned, Donovan Mitchell gets injured, doesn't come back out. And then the most recent game 5, where you're up big into the 3rd quarter, then you can't get a bucket for what was it, like it felt like 10 minutes they didn't get a field goal. Donovan Mitchell was like 33% from the field or something like that. He had more points than he had field goal percentage, which and not in a good way. Darius
No.
Garland, same thing. And then defensively, outside they kind of collapsed in this series. I know the Pacers are good at that, the way they play, the for lack of better terms, the high pace they play at, the almost organized chaos. But my goodness, defensively, it felt like there was just open shots every time. You're just hoping they'd miss them. I don't know what happened with Cleveland's defense, but it was virtually non-existent about outside of Evan Mobley occasionally getting some rejections. That was really rough to watch. It felt like when I say the Atlanta Hawks of 2015, that's very much overplayed. But it's like the number one, like the Peyton Manning Colts teams for many years. That'd be the number one seed, then flounder out. That's what it kind of felt like we were watching a team that was so good that just wet the bed. I don't even know how else to say. They felt like they wet the bed plus the injuries. Can't over can't overstate that. You missed 60% of your starting 5 for a game.
Yeah.
And then Darius Garland missed game 1, and then after that, they were Donovan Mitchell getting banged up too. Not an excuse, but it was just a very bad series for Cleveland all around, honestly.
Yeah. There was no bench help for Cleveland.
What bench?
Th- There was zero bench after game 1. It didn't exist. And I mean, combined, they maybe gave you 25 points a night combined, while Indiana, on the other hand, was giving you 40, 45 off their bench. And they look good. And these same guys that came in off the bench were lighting it up. I mean, it was wild to see the way that the Pacers closed out halftime of game 5 or 4. Sorry, game 4. And that set the tone for how dramatic they were just going to dominate the Cavs for the rest of the series. I mean, they were up 80, they had 80 points in a half. One half of basketball. What is happening when you're giving up 80 points in a half? I
First
mean,
half,
yeah,
nonetheless.
yeah, like, and the Pacers, don't get me wrong, they played an excellent series. I think talking about the Cavs more is doing a disservice to how good the Pacers were. They were fantastic. Tyrese Halliburton, Naismith,
And
Nemhard.
Harden, my goodness. That is the
Yeah,
fakest 10 points per game I've ever seen. That man averages 30. He just keeps in his back pocket till no one's
yeah.
paying
He
attention.
he decides to give you 20 assists sometimes instead of just going and scoring. The dude's wild. And then Siakam looked good. I mean, Siakam had a lot of his ways, but Miles freaking Turner. Can we go back to discussing Miles Turner, who is finally healthy again, and how dominant he is as a center, as a two-way center, as a stretch center as well? The guy was, I mean, look, he was wearing the old Pacers uniforms when he first got in the league. He was a young kid and he was unpolished. He's now polished and he is healthy and he looks fantastic as a Pacer with everything around them. Like, he's no longer that third, fourth wheel on the team. He has proven himself to be a dominant player in, especially now in the playoffs. Like, his matchup versus Jared Allen was, that wasn't fair to Jared Allen. I think a lot of ways what Turner was able to do was beyond impressive. It was dominant. It was that big guy dominating in the playoffs you see for every team that decides to make a run in these playoffs. Because you see it every year. Like, in this recent change to 3-point shooting for the NBA, and every time you get in the playoffs and you have a big that can go and dominate, even going back to Ivica Zubac as a dominant center for the Clippers a couple years back, getting them through 3 rounds, and then when he was finally going off or going downhill, they fell off. Like, it just takes a big to get hot, and then you can dominate this entire series because they give you second chance points. And that's what you saw with Miles Turner's doing. Siakam, Spacers team was fantastic, top to bottom. Cleveland, on the other hand, like, yeah, injuries play a part. I'm going to say coaching plays a part in here too. It felt like it was too big for the coaching staff. Like, their eyes were wide. They weren't prepared because this didn't feel like a team that was well prepared at all. A team that they played 3 times in the regular season, 4 times in the regular season. Sorry. Like, how do you not prepare for this? Actually, they might have played a lot more than that, but like, how do you not prepare for this Indiana team? They're 3.5 hours, sorry, 6.5 hours away from Cleveland. Like, how do you mess that up? Doesn't seem fair. It doesn't seem right. Um, but yeah, I don't know what Cleveland can do to solve it. It's a lot of questions for the offseason, but doesn't look good for the offseason for them. That's for sure.
It's tough because now no matter what they do in the regular season next year, it's like, well, let's see if you don't flame out in the second round. Let's see what you
Yeah.
can do there. You have a really good starting lineup for the most part. I'm hoping DeAndre Hunter could kind of take that next step and be more of a consistent starter in that role instead of Max Strus for him. Because we've seen
You
going back to
should
in the
be the
finals,
starter.
we saw it in the finals. Max Strus is not very reliable. Like that is
Yeah.
the epitome of unreliable, unfortunately. So I'm hoping Hunter kind of takes that starting role. I don't know if Garland and Mitchell's it's a fun backcourt. It's electric sometimes. I don't think you can win a title with those two. I just think they're both smaller offensive-minded guards that they both bring the ball up. They both do a lot of similar things. Obviously, Mitchell's significantly better, plays the 2 guard, but you need somebody that could kinda play a little bit or you need somebody who can play defense consistently for sure. Neither one of those guys is clamping anybody up. This is where Drew Holiday in his prime would make sense alongside Donovan
Yeah.
Mitchell. This is where Derek White would be a huge contributor because 'cause they'd be able to complement very well. Somebody
This
that
is where
can
their lack of bench also hurt because Isaac Okoro is usually that wing player that comes in, defends the heck out of somebody, locks him down. The dude
oh, man.
played 33 minutes in the entire series,
I'm
and
gonna need Isaac
most of that came in game 4.
I need Isaac Okoro to spend this offseason with Aaron Gordon and sharpen up that shot for him so we can get him in the starting lineup too. Because I need him to do the Aaron Gordon going from 29% to
Yeah.
41% from 3. He does that, he is a starter for sure, and even
Oh,
though he
no,
looks like Colin Sexton right now.
it's not even like a situation. Yeah, he needs to
That
figure out
afro is
his
not
game.
working for him. I need
No,
it's not working
but
for him.
with him, it's like one of those things. Like you don't expect him to be a starter. You expect him to be a six man that locks down defensively. But in this series, he couldn't lock down. To be fair, nobody locked down anybody at any point in time.
It was a
So
tragedy.
I'm not gonna pick. TJ McConnell made fools look like an idiot, but TJ McConnell's been making fools look like an idiot since he got into the league, which is still hilarious to me.
He's like JJ Barea, and not just because he's white. You touch him, he gets fouled, and then he just pulls up for that goofy little mid-range shot. It's like, why did no one destroy that?
Or
Oh, it's because you touch
people
him, he
forget
goes
him
to
in
the
the
ball
corner. Like, how do you forget TJ McConnell in the corner?
because you don't look down.
Look, white guys in the NBA do two things well. They pass the ball and they sit in the corner and they shoot threes really well. And guess what he does? He passes the ball and he sits in the corner and shoots threes really well. Oh, he also break your ankles when you decide to try to face guard him. So good luck with that too. Like, yeah, TJ McConnell's been in the league for a long time and continues to be in the league for a long time for a reason. And people keep underestimating him, but whatever. Yeah,
What I'm
this
excited
is
for is we do know the Pacers are moving on. If they play the Knicks, we got some OG bad blood from wait, we got a little bit of nostalgia kicking in with the 3 and who would have thought the Knicks would get a home court advantage in the Eastern Conference Finals? Who had that on their bingo card?
yeah, not I. So
Neither did I, but assuming that takes place, we still have the West figuring itself out as we have the Timberwolves taking on the Warriors later tonight. Apparently, the Timberwolves appear to be in full control of that one ever since Steph went down. In theory, we're gonna just kind of assume with this part since that's all we can do right now. We can kind of look in the future. We'll say the Timberwolves can find a way to get it done, especially because they've won 3 in a row and have looked dominant. The question's gonna be with the Thunder and the Nuggets. While the Thunder are up 3-2 at the time of the recording, the Nuggets are known for one thing, and that well, they're known for a lot of things, but one of them is they're not gonna go quiet. Like that is far from over. So question is, as we kind of survey the landscape, the Eastern Conference Finals is not set, but it's close. The West is not really even close at all. What do who are we looking at for the finals favorite? Like who do we want to see in the finals? We'll put it that we'll go with that one. What are we looking for the finals? Which matchups do we want to see since it's already all but guaranteed? It's not one that we had on our bingo cards.
yeah. First of all, the Pacers still sounds like a fantastic Eastern Conference representative. Um, and I want to see one of these 3-1 games end up a comeback. Like we can't have all 4 series go 3-1 and all 4 series end in a 3-1 teams win. Like we can't do that anymore. This is the new NBA. Somebody's got to drop the ball. And with that in mind, I'm calling out the dropping of the ball on the Nuggets. It's finally going to catch up with them that they're going to drop the ball on this one, and the Thunder are finally going to pull it off, righting the wrongs that were caused in the Kevin Durant, James Harden era, where they lost 3-1.
So you're saying the Thunder are going to lose while up 3-2?
No, I'm saying the Thunder are going to come back and win 3-1, righting the wrongs of losing the 3-1 series back in the day of James Harden.
But they're up 3-2 right now, so they're not a
Oh, you're
3-1.
right. My bad. I was looking at that wrong. Sorry. Thunder, continue to hold that. My bad. Just kidding. No, in that case, yeah, keep the Thunder there. I just want to see the Thunder, honestly, from the West. I just don't want to see the Nuggets again. No offense to Jokic. I don't want to see Aaron Gordon and that squad. Not that there's anything wrong with Aaron Gordon. I just hate the rest of that squad. I hate the way they're coached.
You hate some of
I've
the Nuggets fans of yesteryear.
I've lost too much money on watching the Nuggets not let Christian Braun get assists,
Oh, it's
not have
personal.
Michael Porter Jr. hit threes,
That's on Michael Porter Jr.
not have Jokic get his double-double like he's supposed to. Like, that team frustrates me to no end, so, yeah. Also, I don't like Nuggets fans in a lot of cases, so, yeah, give me the
We
Thunder from there, but
there are some out there that could definitely drive you wild. That's for sure. That the mile high is not just it's sometimes where the ego is as
they're
well.
definitely a mile high, but not in the right way.
I'm gonna take a different approach with the East. I mostly because I'm in the same way with Pacers fans. Some of them are just kind of annoying. So I'm gonna take a personal event in there. I'm gonna say I want to see the Knicks versus the Timberwolves. I want to see the two teams from that big blockbuster trade in the offseason immediately go back head to head. I want to see all the Villanova boys on the court again. I want to see Cat and Julius Randle fighting in the paint. I want to see Rudy Gobert awkwardly getting rebounds and then forgetting to put the ball back and bouncing it off the bottom of the rim. I want to see Ant versus Jalen Brunson, two polar opposite play styles. I want to see Mikal Bridges, Josh Hart. I want all of it. I want to see Mikal Alexander Walker, Mikal Bridges, very lengthy, versatile guy. Jaden McDaniels versus Josh Hart. I want it all. I love the matchups. I love the coaching differences. I love the storylines. And then the fact that we're getting a 3 seed versus 7 seed too. No ones, no twos, no fours. Bring me the chaos. Bring it all in here. And ultimate bragging rights for whoever wins. Julius Randle wins. It's like told you Lakers and told you Knicks.
Mm.
You guys done goof. If the Knicks win, Karl-Anthony Towns, I told you all you should have got rid of Gobert and kept me. I told you all I was right. The zestiness was a ploy. I was ready for this. And then you get the possible breakout of Ant or the Jalen Brunson up completing the arc of college national champion, NBA national champion, probably finals MVP at that point, most likely, off of a clutch player of the year and the most unlikely superstar top 5 potential player, especially when you factor in accolades too. And a lefty that does it, a lefty to finally pull through. We've seen James Harden not quite get there. We've seen got a lot of guys not quite get there. So I'm all for it. Give me the Knicks and the Timberwolves. I'm all for it, which I probably just cursed it, but that's what I'm looking forward to.
I wouldn't mind the Knicks. The Timberwolves bothers me. I don't think Rudy Gobert is not somebody that deserves a national deserves a title.
But
That
what if he
dude,
just gets there and then they lose?
no, shouldn't even touch the court on an NBA Finals game.
What if they don't let him play?
The man shut down the league for being a goofball and touching everybody.
What if he gets suspended for something else, but that and can't play the rest of the playoffs? Then can they go?
No, because he's still technically being paid by the team and he get a ring.
What if he gets cut?
Still gets a ring.
What if certain forces deport him?
Still gets a ring.
What if they say he doesn't get a ring?
Still too much.
All right, I had to see where I had to try and find the line.
The Rudy Gobert hate is deep in this one. No, look, yeah, I think the Timberwolves made a mistake keeping Gobert, but I digress. They're still paying the man. Like, come on, you can't keep paying this guy.
I'm more mad that I'm surprised they gave up 5 first-round picks for him as well. That's a different story. But if it gets them to the finals,
he's a man that got paid because of advanced statistics. That's the only reason this guy got paid. Nothing on the court tells me that a guy makes a difference other than 5 defensive plays a game.
And game 5 against the Lakers, but that doesn't.
Yeah, game 5s in the playoffs in general, he decides to go off. It doesn't make sense.
Well, if that's the case, we're taking the over tonight for him. But let us know down in the comments below, too, who you all want to see in the NBA Finals with a very unusual playoffs, especially in the Eastern Conference shaking out. But it's going to now transition us into Kelcey's favorite part of every show, and that is, of course, crunch time. And for crunch time, the car is parking for good, as it looks like Derek Carr is shifting into retirement, retiring from the Saints after a shoulder injury, and just consulting with his wife and his family and everyone, basically saying, yeah, we're going to call it a career here. That's tough to see him go, especially not under his own circumstances. Chris Olave and the family are rejoicing, but everyone, if you're the Saints otherwise, you're basically like, well, glad we drafted a quarterback. And the rest of us are like, well, you drafted the last player to ever be born in the 1990s to come into the NFL to be a rookie quarterback for you. But kudos to Carr. A good but still underwhelming career, I'd say. Like multiple-time Pro Bowler. Made the playoffs once, third in MVP voting in 2016 before the leg injury. Had some moments here and there, I suppose. Like was always kind of good, but couldn't quite get that next step, if that makes sense. Like couldn't quite take off after that. But a solid career, made a lot of money too. Like can't fault him on that. But at the same time, with a shoulder injury like that at his age, someone with injury history like he has to, the amount of
Mhm.
times he's been banged up. Smart decision. Wish him and family and everyone all the best. Chris Olave rejoiced. Hopefully Tyler Shuck doesn't throw him hospital balls too. I'm just saying maybe they look into asking Cleveland later on in training camp, like, hey, do you want to keep all those quarterbacks you got over there? But I digress. But Kelcey, what are we thinking on Derek Carr announcing his retirement?
Yeah, I mean, good for him. First of all, I hate that again. Like you, I hate that he went out this way. I hate going players having to leave because of injury. But that's kind of the story of Derek Carr's career. Is he's a guy that was riding a high, riding a high, riding a high, breaks his leg. Dude's on an MVP tear, breaks his leg. You know, and that kind of set the tone for his career. He comes from a family who is known for the more depressing stats in the NFL as well. His brother owns the most sacked quarterback award, which is not something you ever want to wear.
Not an award.
Yeah, it's the golden sombrero on crack, in a lot of ways. So the Carr family has been through a lot. I'm glad to see that in this case, Derek is making it out relatively unscathed based on the videos he's already shared of his first day of retirement with his kids, working out, having fun, being able to enjoy his family. I hope that's how it is. I hope he's not, actually nursing a lot of injuries right now. But yeah, it's one of those things like people forget how good Derek Carr really was for a long
I forgot.
time. Like he was that dude. Players wanted to go to Oakland when he was there to play with him. Marshawn praises the dude. You know, yeah, a little bit corny when he got to the Saints, but the guy had been through so many injuries, shoulders, elbows, hands, knees. Like he went out leaving his body out to dry. Like he went out basically on a stretcher in his career, and that sums up a lot of what type of a player he was. He was a play it till the end of the whistle, keep going, fight as hard as you can, like play through injury if you can. As a quarterback, that doesn't happen very often.
Smaller quarterback too, a thinner one.
Yeah. And he would run straight through somebody if he had to, if it meant the difference between a first down or a fourth down. And that's how he gets hurt. So it's a tough situation to see a guy like that retire. You hope maybe he can find a solution for himself in retirement. Maybe goes back to coaching or maybe he sticks around in the game in some way, shape, or form. But yeah, Derek Carr as a quarterback, I had no complaints. I would have loved him as a Cowboys quarterback, honestly. Not saying he was great by any means, but he's a great guy, great locker room guy, for all reports being around it. So, yeah, you wish him the best in retirement. Now, for the Saints, I'm looking at Hunter Deckers right now as your best option at quarterback, and he's the guy out of D3. But I don't hate the idea of them calling the Browns and being like, "Hey, how that Dylan Gabriel guy? How about you send him down?" Because your locker room right now, your quarterback room is Hunter Deckers, Jake Hayner, Spencer Rattler, and Tyler Shuck. Um, so good luck with that.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot promising there. Like, maybe
No,
we're wrong. Maybe Tyler Shuck is not Brandon Weeden 2.0, but
Kellen Moore's got something up his sleeve, and that's what scares me.
Kellen Moore's gonna be suiting up is what's up his sleeve.
Yeah, probably actually. But yeah, I mean, look, happy that Carr gets to try to retire and actually enjoy his retirement before his body gets too beat up anymore. Not that it's not already really beat up. But yeah, for the Saints, man, you kind of knew this was happening. You knew this was a possibility, so I hope you drafted for that possibility.
I hope you're ready, but if not, maybe they'll load. We'll see what comes of the Saints. Which the more you think about it, the more confusing it gets when it trying to decide for the
Well,
Saints.
hey, there's always the conspiracy theory that Arch Manning will decide to put his name in the draft in 2 years and end up a Saint, the number 1 overall pick.
Well, if I'm him, I'd imagine he's not coming out next year. I imagine it's still 2 years away. I imagine the family's going to make him at least go through more than just 1 year of starting. But I digress. We'll have to wait and see. There's a lot of time to go. You never know. So
yeah, I mean, if it's up to Peyton and Eli, they say to stick it out. Archie says the same thing, but he's from the line of Mannings that hadn't been in the NFL before.
that is definitely the golden question we'll have to keep an eye on. And he's not really hurting for money, so you know what? Maybe he wants to play more. So
He makes more than Shador makes this year. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Sorry, Shador. I think Shador's in a good spot, but I'll leave that.
I think he'll be starting before Halloween. But I digress on that one.
I think he'll be starting week 1, but yeah.
Hold on, we will not insult our Lord and Savior Joe Flacco like that. I'm joking. I couldn't even say it with a straight face. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we started.
Joe Flacco is going to look real great on the sideline with that ball cap and that earpiece in as holding that number 2 clipboard.
It's gonna look real good for 1.5 quarters in the first half of the season, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But I digress. But either way, that's gonna do it here for the High Low Sports Podcast. We appreciate y'all so much for joining us on this Wednesday evening, or if it's when you're catching us on one of your favorite places to listen to podcasts later in the week. Be sure to check out our YouTube page for the UFC schedule update, as well as some other periodic videos we place there as well. Follow us on all of our socials, link down below in the description. Once again, thank you all so much for hanging out with us. We'll see you all again next time.